Check out what the satisfied Dan Gemus real estate team clients are saying about working with the Dan Gemus team. Visit dangemus.com.
I got to thank you for being a voice of reason in a sea of insanity.
Now back to the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show on AM800.
All right. Yes. Covering lots of stuff here on the show today. I am Dan Gemus, Joyce Blackmere, Aaron Blackmere in studio today as well. And again, we will pull the winner for the Richmond Popcorn Company gift card in the next segment. If you haven't already entered, the keyword today is butter. Butter with your first and last name to 10800 and you're automatically entered. Now, this past week, I was on the air with Patty Handysides going over some changes to some legislation governing real estate in the province of Ontario. It took effect yesterday on Friday, December 1st, and no one has spent more time studying the changes than our own Joyce Blackmere. You have been championing this change for our team. We are very appreciative. Everyone's very appreciative. But let's talk about some of the changes that have been made and how it affects the average person listening right now if they're looking to buy or sell a home.
Yeah. So like Dan said, yesterday was the day where our Real Estate and Business Brokers Act changed to the Trust in Real Estate Services Act. So along with that came quite a few changes to the way we've learned and known to do business over the past however many
20
years.
Yeah. About 2005 was when REBA, it's REBA 2002, but they started enacting in 2005, so almost 20 years.
Yeah, so we're all accustomed to doing business a certain way, and a lot of those things changed, and they changed over the course of a few years. Of course, there's been some implementations. This is the second phase. There's another phase to come. I'm not really sure when that will happen exactly. But the changes are all about promoting more transparency, more education, more protection, more options, more information for the consumer. So it is a really, really big deal. And it's a big deal for the consumer. It's a big deal for realtors because it's something new that we all need to learn. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of the key things. Number one, it's strengthening the types of brokerage representation that we have. So if we think back to REBA, so before TRESA, there was only one type of representation that was offered for clients, and that was brokerage representation. So what happened in that instance is that we'd have a seller, for example, list their home with us, and if anybody on our team had a buyer that was interested in that property, we would then recommend what we call multiple representation, which means the brokerage was representing the interests equally of the buyer and the seller. When we as realtors work under multiple representation, we have some specific rules that we're governed by. We're not allowed to share the motivation behind buyer or seller. We're not allowed to share what the seller is willing to sell their home for or what the buyer is willing to pay for it. There's a lot of circumstances, a lot of things that we're not allowed to share, and private information, for example. Yeah. It's all confidential. So that disallowed us from truly 100% representing the full interests of our client during that particular trade. So what TRESA has done is they've introduced something called designated representation. So the designated representative is still supervised by the brokerage. However, it allows us to separate the interests. It allows one realtor in the brokerage or on the team to represent the interest of the seller and another one to represent the interest of the buyer so that they can be properly so the clients can be properly represented. And you don't have to worry about crossover with sharing of information because those realtors are representing specifically the needs of their particular clients. So that's a really big one. It's a really important one. It will limit the number of times that multiple representation comes into effect. It's still a thing. It can still exist. It can still happen. Yeah. There are definitely circumstances, but it is nice to know that, we're limiting that and that the consumer has options. This is all what it's all about.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
options and transparency.
90%, 95% of transactions are going to be with designated representation. So yeah, that's the key.
So it's really, really great. The other one, another biggie, and I've heard a lot of misinformation floating out there between realtors and consumers. So the new one is sellers now have the option And I want to really highlight that word option to share contents of offers.
Option.
So
that's the key word.
That's a big one.
And this has been, you did an interview with CTV News
Yes.
this week. I was on with Patty. And people are not hearing the word option. That's the key.
It's
They're
not
just-
a mandatory thing,
Right.
but I mean, there are circumstances where some sellers may choose to share contents of their offers. And I mean, that's so subjective. We really can't get into what those scenarios might be because it's their choice. At the end of the day, whether they do or don't want to share with the consumer. Buyers too. If we look at it the other side, buyers are very excited about sharing the contents of offers. But let's remember too, just back a couple of years ago when even a year ago, when we're seeing 20 offers or 15 offers on a property, not all buyers are going to be very comfortable with the prospect of their information being shared. So there's some give and take there. There's definitely pros and cons. There's definitely risk and reward. But it needs to be explored with your agent. You need to determine whether that is the right approach, based on the circumstances of that particular trade. But it's the seller's option, not the buyer's option.
right.
It is the seller's option.
Option.
Yes.
I'm just throwing that out there.
The other thing that I really, really like about TRESA, and everybody in our office is TRESA'd out. They're tired of hearing the word. But what I really like about it is that there's an introduction of some new paperwork. And we don't like paperwork, typically speaking, but what I really do like about it is that it is slowing the process down. 2 years ago, a year ago, when we're in these frenzies of multiple offers, decisions and all kinds of things are happening so fast that the consumer's not really hearing or understanding necessarily every time what it is. And I'm not saying all the time. I'm just saying sometimes you're rushed into decisions and you're maybe not reading all the words or you're not catching everything. This is slowing it down. There's new paperwork that needs to be explained. So for example, the biggest addition to our paperwork is something called the RICO Information Guide. The Real Estate Council of Ontario, that's what RICO stands for, has imposed a mandatory information guide, which talks about all of the things, all of the representations that exist. It talks about multiple representation. It talks about our obligations to our clients and their obligations back to us as
complaint
Yeah.
against a real estate brokerage or a broker or a realtor if you have any questions.
talks about what to look for in contracts and in agreements. It's fantastic, and it really breaks it down. So that's one form that was imposed.
It's just like real estate for dummies, almost. It's
Well,
just,
yeah, I mean-
I'm saying it, to be funny, but it's truly making it
It
really
breaks
simple.
it down. It
Yeah.
makes it simple. Yeah. So that there's a firm understanding of, okay, this is the next step.
Yes.
I read about this. I get this
It's key,
now.
yeah.
And
think
it
that-
really promotes conversation and dialogue.
That form, when you send, I think it's transparency again.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
telling you what we do, what we can't do, and if you want to represent yourself, this is what we can and cannot do. So yeah, it's, as you put, it's just a simpler form putting out there.
Yep.
At the end of the day, realtors, professional realtors want their clients to understand what it is that they're doing when they're buying or when they're selling, because at the end of the day, we're here with our respective clients to make sure that the deal closes, make sure it goes smoothly, make sure that you're understanding, making sure that even though you may have negotiated a little lower or higher than you wanted to go, that you're as happy as you can possibly be. Sure. That's at the end of the day, that's what it is. Now, all of these changes are backed by a revamped code of ethics as well. So, we're knees deep in policy and procedures and.
Well, but to kind of backtrack to what you said about the slowing things down, there was times when you sit there and you do have 15 or 20 offers come in. This is the biggest investment in your life, and you have 1 hour to make a decision on what
Right.
you want to do.
That's right.
So to me, at times, I was just like, we got to buy some time here because this is crazy with what's happening.
It's a good time to implement changes like this. It's a slower, traditionally just slower time of year, so we can sort of get some traction and get
comfortable
firm understanding and comfortable with this, because spring markets traditionally are busier, right?
Yep.
So as it gets busier, we want to make sure that we have all this underway. But if you have any questions about TRESA, you want to learn how it might affect you as a consumer, you can reach out to me, Joyce at dangemus.com. You can reach out to our team, 519-566-5565. And of course, check us out online, dangemus.com.
Well, there you go. There you have it. I'm going home.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Bye.
why are you here, Dan? Why are you here?
That's why Joyce hosts the show and I'm not here. It's all good. She's got this. Well, fantastic information. Thank you, Joyce, for that.
Of course.
Yep, it's pretty interesting stuff, but again, beneficial to those looking to buy or sell in the future, which is great. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're happy to help. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, give away the gift card. If you haven't already entered, the keyword is butter with your first and last name to 10800. We'll give away the gift card, $50 for the Richmond Popcorn Company. After the break, we're going to come back and talk to Patrice Surratt from Goldmar Property Management about what she's seeing in the marketplace right now with regards to rentals. What are prices doing? What is she seeing out? Is there lots of inventory? Is it tight? What is she seeing out there? So we'll talk to her when we get back right here on the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show.